This is lecture 6A. We're going to have culture tour guides product knowledge. We want you to know your product. This is one of a series of lectures. Today we'll talk about Voi Town, Voi War Cemetery, Voi Railway Station, and military line to Maktau. Why is Voi Station important? All right, let's just hit Voi Town. Facts about Voi Town. It is the largest town in Taita Taveta County, Kenya, and is situated in the former coast. It is located at the western edge of the Taru Desert, south and west of the Tsavo East National Park, with the Sagala Hills to the south. That's Voi Town. You live in Voi Town. Try to know Voi Town. Try to be able, if a visitor comes and says, I want a tour of Voi, do you know the places? Do you know where the geomology lab is? Do you know where the hospital is? What's the history of the hospital? When was it started? Do you know why Kariako is named Kariako? Kariako is about carrier corps. That is where they had their station, or they had their garrison those days. The railway station is one. Kariako had their station at Kariako, where we have. Try to learn more. I can only give you so much, and there's so much to learn. You want to be a good tour guide? Do your homework. Don't wait for class. Class is only 3 hours a day, or 3 hours a week, rather. So work on it. Know more about Voi. Interesting places in Voi. What are they? You might not know, but they discovered a mass grave in Makinga Voi Primary School, which they think could be of the African potters who were working during World War One. Find that out. Read. Three agendas that I leave you with. It serves as a marketplace for agricultural meat products from the fertile Taita Hills, as well as the surrounding areas. You know when the market days are in Voi? Have you gone to the market? Do you know the history of the market? What about if you take a visitor to the market? What are you going to talk about the market? What do you know about the market? When did the market start? When did it move from Voi to where it is right now? It used to happen just outside the DTA office. That's where the market was. No, when did it move? The town center consists mainly of general stores, shops, markets, kiosks, hotels. There's no manufacturing industry here. There used to be Taita Manufacturing next to the Kenya Power near Total. I wonder whether it still works. But there is still the Sisal Estate, which does manufacture. Most lodges that serve tourists from the national parks are located in the suburbs or the edge of town. And which are these? Do you know them? If you're asked, do you know them? And all you need to do is just Google. The Voi Sisal Estates are located to the west of the town. When did it start? There is the aspect that it started before the arrival of the Portuguese, Arabs, and other visitors at the coast. Now, do you know when the Portuguese arrived? Vasco da Gama came to Mombasa when? They say Voi was already existing because the Arabs used to trade inwards, or the people from the coast used to come inland, and Voi was a main town. Either you're going to Taveta across the border, or you're going up country. Also, the Kenya coast did not conceptually exist prior to 1920, all right? Because the colonialists had not come, there were no boundaries. We were just living as a whole bunch of people in villages. However, some citations have it that the town started to grow at the end of the 19th century when the Ugandan railway was constructed. Do you know when the railway was started to be constructed from Mombasa to Uganda? You read that in history. Did you read that in history? Can you Google that? When did it reach Kisumu? When did it reach Voi? How long was it stalled by the man-eater lions of Savo? Do you know? Which year was that? Check that up. These questions I'm asking are very important. When was the railway line stopped? It was from February to sometime in September. And what year is that? That's your homework. People started to move in to work on the railway and the nearby Sisal estates. That's why we have Luya here, we have the Abaluya. Mostly the people from Luo, Nyanza came to work in the Sisal. The groups you see in Voi, it's a very cosmopolitan town. There are people who say they were born in Voi, raised in Voi, especially the Luo. They came during this time. Area of Voi, there you can see, 6.28 square miles. and was not granted until 1932. The town has long since outgrown the original grant. This was by the colonials, by the way, the grant that it becomes a town. That was about Voi. Second, Voi War Cemetery. During the East African Campaign, which was fought between the Britons and Germans, it started 1914 to 1918. Mark that, 1914, 1918. Taita Taveta was a key flashpoint in the region. Why? Because the Britons were in Kenya and Tanzania at that time was known as German East Africa. So the Germans were in across the border, Britons were this side, and the war in Europe was mainly against the Germans and the Allied forces. So everywhere the Germans had colonized, they were fighting the British and Allied forces. Now you understand why Taita Taveta was the epicenter of the East African campaign during World War One, because the Germans were in Tanzania or Tanganyika at that time, the Britons were here, and all over the world. That's why it was called World War. Everywhere the colonies were fighting. The German colony was fighting against the British colony. The county is littered with rare historical sites with actual impact in the war. In the outskirts of Voi Town is a war cemetery where the British soldiers are buried. So that's where the British soldiers are buried. The well-maintained cemetery, complete with the picket fence, is maintained by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. That's what we need to go and see. We need to go one of the sites there, and we'll practice there, hopefully next class, after you have actually got this video and you've actually crammed about Voi Town. One, that's one product. Voi War Cemetery is another product. Then we'll look at Voi Railway Station. There's also an Indian cemetery at Maktau area in Mautate sub-country where the Indian Baluchi were buried. How did the Indian happen to come here? That time, India, during World War One, India was already also a colony of Britain. And that's when Britain was called Great Britain. It had colonized almost the whole world, a small, small island, but it had colonized the whole world until the US came into the picture. In Taveta sub-county, there is also another war cemetery where Germans and British were buried. Those are sites that I'm already trying to excite you to look at before we get to them. So understand, there is the Indian cemetery at Maktau. There is also another one for Germans and British at Taveta. There you go. It is next to the police station. If you have never seen this, but that's where the sign. Take time now as you walk. If you come to Voi, just take time. It's not far from DTA office. Go see where the war cemetery is. There it is. Well taken care of. There's a cross at the middle there. And to get in, you need a combination. And this combination, the numbers are from the Commonwealth War Graves Commission in Nairobi. All we need to do is call. We have the number. We'll ask the chairman to do that. More on the Voi Town. The town is located southern Kenya. It became a hospital. It became a hospital center early in 1916 during the World War. That's where they established their hospital for the wounded, and it started growing from that time. So the exact time, because we're saying even before the Portuguese, but when we're talking about, or we want to really have a clear picture, especially in terms of the battlefield tourism, we can say 1916 is when Voi started as a hospital center. Between 1915 and December 1917, 100 burials were made in that cemetery. And after the armistice is the end of the war, 1918, a further 37 graves were brought in from nearby cemeteries. Do we know where those cemeteries were? So we are saying a further 37 graves were brought in from nearby cemeteries. I've said which are these cemeteries, and I've said if we get in there, I'd want you to check whether there are 137 graves in the cemeteries. And who are they? Are they British only? Are they Germans? And who else is there? The original of Voi Cemetery can be traced back to the burial of a civilian engineer. So it didn't start during the World War, but it started really in 1899 Mr. O'Hara, a civil engineer, was killed by one of the famous man-eaters of Savo. Can you Google man-eaters of Savo? What did they do? How were they terrorizing the building, the workers? How many workers were eaten by the man-eaters of Savo? What is the history behind them? Because that's another part of the history that you might want to tell visitors, even if you don't visit there. It surrounds Voi, it surrounds Taita Taveta, it surrounds our tradition and culture. This was a pair of man-eating lions who terrorized workers on the Kenya-Ugandan Railway. So the Voi Cemetery, it contains 137 Commonwealth burials of World War One. There is one which is unidentified. We'll have to look at that. Remember, though, it is traced to the civilian engineer, not a war veteran. And we want to look at this. Who was this veteran killed by the man-eaters of Savo in 1899 when we get there? So more about Voi Town. It became a hospital center. This is a summary. Between 1915, 100 barrels were done. 37 more graves were brought in. The origin, civilian engineer Mr. O'Hara was buried there 1899. He died from the man-eater lions mauling or being killed by those lions. So 137 Commonwealth barrels of World War One are there. One is unidentified. The area around Savo, particularly the railway, was a major theatre of war between British and German during World War One. So major theatre, means an area. That's why Taita Taveta is full of battlefield sites that need to be explored, need to be known, need to be actually exploited as we bring in visitors. Voi Railway Station, that's the third product knowledge we need to know. And it says two technologies that were crucial in shaping the First World War. One, railways. Before the railways, people were carrying goods on their head. That's why we have carrier corps or carrier corps. This was an army that never carried weapons, but it was used for carrying goods, was used for cooking, it was used for washing, and they were very important. They were called the foot and hands of the war. We'll talk more about the carrier corps. And the other one is artillery. That's the second thing that shaped that. But railways provided the enormous logistical capacity needed to support huge armies in the field for years on end, including transportation of millions of artillery shells. So Voi railway station is very important in World War One, as you can see. There it is, Voi station. We'll visit it. Why is it important? Why is Voi station important? The first 20 months of the war saw a large section of British territory to the southeast of Mount Kilimanjaro occupied by German East African Protection Forces known as Schutztruppe, the only British territory occupied by the Germans during World War One. Their aim was to disrupt the Ugandan railway running parallel to the frontier, some 70 miles to the east, winding its way towards the fledgling city of Nairobi. So, Voi all the way to Manyani, to Savo, up to Mtito, it was prone to German attacks. They'll come all the way from Taveta and they'll want to disrupt it. So Voi was very crucial, especially for the war, because that's where goods that come from abroad by ship offloaded in Mombasa, they were offloaded in Voi, and it's from Voi railway station that the military line from Voi to Maktau was picked up. This is a picture of Voi railway station, November 14th. Not the large number of straw bales of fodder that were needed to feed the oxen, horses, mules, and other livestock on the front at Maktau. So Voi station was very important during the war. One, everything that was brought from abroad came by rail up to Voi, offloaded there to go to Maktau. Maktau, as you learn, that's where there was the camp for the British and Allied forces, and they had to be supplied before they invaded Taveta to remove the Germans. The Germans were in Taveta from 1914 to 1916. They occupied Salaita, they occupied Chala, they occupied Maho, and if you go there, you can even see the trenches where they were hiding. But in 1916, a troop of British soldiers and Allied forces commanded by Jan Smuts or Jan van Smuts from South Africa, is the one that led and actually destroyed or actually removed the Germans from there. So Voi railway station, get the history. It was where the military line started. It was a very crucial station for during the war because everything for the war was dropped at Voi railway station. When the war started, the Mombasa Uganda railway was already functioning. And those days it was the steamship, not the steam engine. Also the steamship. They want the ships we see now. You can see Voi Station, junction for Tanzania line. After the war, the line was continued to Taveta, then it was continued to Moshi and Taveta during the East African uh, community. The East African community broke in 1977. That's another history you need to know as a culture tour guide. You cannot afford not to learn other aspects of the history. Daily, you have to be learning and get to be knowledgeable. That's the only way you can be good. So, Voi railway station, that's where they actually took the line off to Maktau. And this was built so that it can feed the camp, and Maktau lies 70 kilometers on the Voi Taveta railway. The construction of this railway, the first and only military line. Remember, it was built by the military, okay, in Eastern Africa. So the military built this for their military purposes. It began in February 1915, and by March, 12 miles of the first track had been laid by the estimated 3,000 men working on it. That was pretty fast for those standards. 12 miles, can you imagine, in less than a month? That was a lot of hard work and very fast. 12 miles means it was almost getting to somewhere Chakaleri or maybe Landi or maybe even near maybe Motunge. We'll have to check that. But it was really a distance within a month. So when did it get to Maktau? Okay, it got to Maktau, I think in May or something. Anyway, they got parts from India. All right, there was no parts being manufactured here. The railway line was constructed as a meter gauge with an initial rail weight of 50 pounds per yard truck, and other weights were also used depending on availability. Rails, sleepers, rolling stock were available from the Indian Railway stockpile because India was a British colony that time, and they actually were building the railway. They were way ahead in terms of railway building. Even right now, you go to India, the railway line system is well developed compared to Kenya because they had started way back in the year 1800s, so to speak. I think late or mid, I'm not very sure. So while the rail was being built to Maktau, they also were building the water pipe, which came from Bura. Bura had a very good supply of water, the springs. We'll have to see where those springs are or where they were. That's how you actually connect the whole history, because it was actually from that spring, which looked like it had a lot of water, and it took water to Maktau. So as the railway was being built, the pipe was also being built. The direction of Sir William John and Lieutenant Colonel J. Sunderland. These were the directors, and they also of the Uganda Railway. They're the ones that built. Sanders was for the director, Uganda Railway, and Sir William was the director. The other one was the deputy. Read that for yourselves. The source of this water, Bura Springs, at 1,500 meters above sea level, enabled the water to move by gravity to Maktau. This is a piece of history we need to know. Where is this source? Where was it? And who are doing this? The East African Pioneer Corps did build the pipeline. So when did the railway reach? It started in February. By June 1915, it had already reached Maktau. That's how fast it was built. So on June 23rd, 1915, the railway reached Maktau. That was pretty fast. In less than 5 months, it was already done. During the First World War, the Mombasa Voi section of the Uganda Railway was regularly bombed by Germans who breached the common border at Taveta. So they'll come all the way from Tanzania or Tanganyika at that time to come and actually disrupt the rail. They knew if we can disrupt the supply, because the railway line was really the bloodline for supplying Kenya from the colonial government that time. And if they could disrupt that supply, then they knew they wouldn't have one ammunition won't be there, the food that is required, and anything that was there for war. Because one of the tactics in war is to destabilize or make sure your enemy is hungry. That's a very crucial tactic that is used in war. Culture tour products knowledge. So we've done three things. You know about Voi Town as itself. And I've said this, please learn the town. If a visitor needs a tour, what are the interesting places? One, of course, the railway station, but that already is there. Another one is the war cemetery. But even Voi Town itself is very interesting. One, now we have the geomology lab, we have the library, we have Lion Hill up there. You can take them. What is there about Lion Hill? What happens there? You can take them all the way also to Voi River so that they can see what happens. And you can actually take them just around the town. But do you know the areas in town? Please learn about that. Then we've looked at the Voi War Cemetery. Remember when it started, who was the first one to be buried, how many graves are there, and of which country do they belong, and who takes care of that. And if they have any questions, we need to go in there and see who was buried there famous. Finally, we have about the Voi railway station, how crucial it was, all the goods that came those days. There was no manufacturing in Kenya. The railway pieces that built military line to Maktau came from Britain. Much of the food also came from Britain. Much of the artillery, let's say all the artillery or all the weapons came from Britain. And that's why Voi old station is very crucial. We also need to go to Voi and look at where did they pick off the line to go to Maktau. We need to see where there is that start of the Voi Maktau line. It's very crucial. Take some pictures and get to know it. All right, bye for now.